The scent of roasted turkey and cinnamon hung heavy in the air, a thick, cloying blanket of forced festivity. Our entire family was there, gathered around the long oak table I had painstakingly polished that morning. My parents, his parents, siblings, a perfect portrait of holiday cheer. Roman, my husband of 22 years, stood at the head of the table, his face flushed with wine and self-satisfaction. He raised his glass, a smug smile playing on his lips as he prepared to deliver his annual Thanksgiving toast. Before a single word could escape his mouth, I stood up, my own movements calm and deliberate. The scraping of my chair legs on the hardwood floor silenced the room. "Actually," I said, my voice cutting through the warmth like a shard of ice, "I have an announcement to make first." Every eye turned to me, but mine were locked on him, watching the smile falter on his face. He had no idea the storm that was about to break. Just 1 year ago, that scene would have been unimaginable. My name is Sabina, and for 22 years, I believed my life was perfect. Roman and I were high school sweethearts, the kind of couple people pointed to as proof that true love existed. We built everything from the ground up, celebrating every small victory, weathering every minor storm. He was the only man I had ever been with. I remember one summer afternoon, years ago, when we were painting the nursery for our first child. We were young, broke, and covered in pale yellow paint, laughing so hard we could barely breathe as we flickered brushes at each other. That was the man I married. That was the life I cherished. Then came the surgery. A total hysterectomy at 44. It wasn't just the physical pain, the deep, searing ache that seemed to settle in my bones. It was the emotional fallout, the feeling of being hollowed out, of losing a part of myself I hadn't even realized was so central to my identity as a woman. I needed him then more than ever. I needed the man who had laughed with me in that paint-splattered room. But he was gone. In his place was a stranger, a man whose touch grew infrequent, whose eyes slid past me as if I were a piece of furniture. The late nights at the office began piling up. His phone, once casually left on the kitchen counter, became an extension of his hand, angled away from me with a paranoid twitch every time a notification buzzed. My gut, a place I hadn't listened to in years, started screaming. His cruelty wasn't overt. It was 1,000 tiny cuts, each one deeper than the last. I remember one night, about a month after the surgery, I was curled on the couch, a wave of pain so intense it stole my breath. "Roman," I whispered, "could you get my pain medication from the bathroom?" He didn't look up from his laptop, the rapid click-clack of the keys the only sound in the room. He let out an exaggerated, impatient sigh. "Can't it wait a minute, Sabina? I'm in the middle of an important work email." The pills were less than 20 feet away. Another time, I was walking past his home office and heard him on the phone with his sister, Elara. His voice was low, laced with contempt. "She just lies around groaning all day," he complained. "It's exhausting. There's just no spark there anymore, you know." He wasn't just distant, he was disgusted by me. He was disgusted by the pain that was a direct result of a surgery meant to save my life. Each word was another exhibit in the museum of my dying marriage. After weeks of gnawing suspicion, of watching him guard his phone like it was a state secret, I did something I never thought I was capable of. I became a person I didn't recognize. One evening, after he'd left for another late night, I walked into his office. My hands were trembling, a cold sweat prickling my neck. It felt like a betrayal, a violation of the trust that had been the bedrock of our entire adult lives. But what trust was left to violate? I sat down at our family laptop, the one he often used for work, and with a few clicks, I installed a data recovery app. The guilt was almost enough to make me stop, but the image of his sneering face as he guarded his phone pushed me forward. It didn't take long. The program whirred, and then, like a floodgate opening, they appeared. Hundreds of deleted messages. A conversation thread stretching back nearly a year. The name at the top was Dahlia. A 25-year-old intern from his company. My breath hitched. My heart hammered against my ribs as I read. This wasn't just flirting. This was a full-blown affair, detailed in sickening clarity. There were descriptions of their nights in hotels, critiques of my body, and plans for their future. But it was their mockery of my medical condition that broke me. One message from Roman burned itself into my brain: Sabina's complaining about the scar again. Acts like an old woman. Dahlia's reply was a laughing emoji followed by, "When are you finally gonna leave that menopausal hag for me?" And Roman's response, the final nail in the coffin of the man I thought I knew: "Soon, baby. Our future is waiting." I sat there in the dark, the screen's glow illuminating the silent tears streaming down my face. I wasn't just heartbroken. I was shattered into a million pieces. The tears eventually stopped. The all-consuming grief receded, and in its place, something else began to grow. It was cold, sharp, and terrifyingly clear. It was rage. A calculated, methodical rage that demanded more than just leaving. It demanded justice. I picked up my phone, my fingers steady now, and dialed the one number I knew I could trust. Tadeo, my best friend since we were 15. We'd never been anything more, a platonic bond that had outlasted every other relationship in my life, except, I had thought, my marriage. He answered on the second ring. "Sabina. Is everything okay?" I told him everything. I didn't cry. I recited the facts, the messages, the betrayal, my voice flat and devoid of emotion, like a news reporter detailing a tragedy. He listened in complete silence. When I finished, the only sound was his breathing, heavy and angry. "That son of a bitch," he finally said, his voice a low growl. "Sabina, what do you want to do? I'll help you with anything. Anything at all." And in that moment, the plan began to form, crystallizing in my mind with perfect clarity. "He's cheating on me," I said, my voice gaining strength. "So, I'm going to cheat on him. Or at least, I'm going to make him believe I am. I'm going to drive him absolutely insane with paranoia while I quietly dismantle his entire world." For the next 6 months, I became an actress worthy of an Oscar. The Affair Theater was officially open for a one-man audience. I started having drinks with co-workers, arriving home just late enough for him to notice a faint, unfamiliar scent of expensive men's cologne, courtesy of Tadeo, clinging to my coat. I'd take secretive phone calls in the other room, my voice a low murmur, punctuated by soft laughter. The moment I heard Roman's footsteps, I'd whisper a hasty, "I have to go," and hang up, a small, secretive smile on my face. Tadeo was my co-conspirator. We took photos together, nothing explicit, just him with his arm around me at a restaurant, our heads close together, smiling. I made one of them my profile picture on a private social media account that I knew his gossiping sister, Elara, followed religiously. It took less than a day for the fallout to begin. Just as I predicted, Roman became a paranoid wreck. The man who had been sneaking around for a year suddenly transformed into a jealous, possessive husband. He'd check my phone while he thought I was sleeping. He'd question every receipt in my purse. The hypocrisy was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The climax came one night in the kitchen. He backed me against the counter, his face a mask of crimson fury. "Who is he, Sabina?" he roared, his voice cracking. "Who are you sleeping with?" I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just looked him dead in the eye, held his gaze for a long moment, and let out a small, cold laugh before turning and walking away, leaving him sputtering in a storm of his own making. While Roman was losing his mind, consumed by a fire I had so carefully lit, I was making my real moves in the shadows. My days were a study in quiet efficiency. My first call was to Mireia Vargas, the most ruthless and respected divorce attorney in the city. She listened to my story, a grim smile forming on her face. "Mrs. Sanchez," she said, This isn't just a divorce. This is a demolition. Next, I went to the bank. I systematically moved every penny of my personal savings and the $150,000 inheritance my grandmother had left me into a new, private account under my name only. Roman had always dismissed it as play money. He was about to find out how wrong he was. I secured a lease on a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment for me and my youngest son, who was still in high school. And then came the most satisfying part. I spent weeks meticulously compiling the evidence. Every text message, every hotel receipt I found through the recovery app, every photo of him and Dahlia from her public social media pages. I printed everything in high resolution, organized it chronologically, and placed it into 14 identical, 1-inch thick binders. One for me, one for him, and one for every single adult who would be sitting at our Thanksgiving table. My war chest was ready. Which brings us back to Thanksgiving. The turkey sat glistening on the table. Roman stood, glass in hand, ready to toast to family and faithfulness. After my interruption, I walked slowly around the table to where he stood. I placed one of the thick binders directly in front of his plate, followed by a heavy manila envelope. "Happy Thanksgiving, Roman," I said, my voice ringing with perfect clarity in the stunned silence. "These are divorce papers. You're being served." Chaos erupted. His mother, Jacinta, shrieked. My father stood up, his face a thundercloud. Roman stared at the papers, his face draining of all color. But I wasn't finished. "Oh, and one more thing," I announced to the room. "About an hour ago, an email I scheduled was sent to everyone in this room, as well as the entire HR department and the CEO of Roman's company." I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. The subject line is, "Regarding Roman Sanchez's unethical conduct." The password to the evidence website linked inside is, "Faithful Husband." I watched as phones began to buzz around the table. I watched the dawning horror on their faces as they read. I watched my husband's perfect world burn to the ground. The implosion was swift and total. Roman was fired the next morning for violating the company's strict policy against relationships with subordinates. His deeply religious mother, Jacinta, called me, screaming that I was a vindictive monster who had ruined her son. I let her finish her tirade, then calmly said, "Your son ruined himself, Jacinta. You just refused to see it," and hung up. He lost his job, his reputation, and his family in the span of 24 hours. I took my son, and we left that house, never looking back. The power had shifted completely. It's been a few months now. Life in our new apartment is quiet, peaceful. Tadeo comes over for dinner sometimes. Just last week, he confessed he'd been in love with me since college but stepped aside when I chose Roman. For the first time in over a year, I feel light. I feel free. I'm building a new life, a better one, founded on honesty. Roman got what he deserved. Some of our mutual friends say my revenge was too cruel, too public. But I believe he got a taste of the same humiliation he served me when I was at my lowest. So, I'll ask you. Am I the wrong one?